Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Maaike and today I have my reading wrap up for you. Before we do that, I have to apologize for my very inconsistent uploading. I am currently not able to stick to like uploading on Fridays at all, so I kind of try to do my best. So the way it's gonna go down from now on, one video a week somewhere in the weekend. So that could be Friday evening, could be Saturday, could be Sunday. Because I really need to just find the time to edit and film and do all that. So you will be getting more stuff from me. Don't worry, there's more coming. But I just, at this moment, cannot really guarantee a certain date or time in the week. Just somewhere weekendish, I can definitely get something up, I'm sure. So yeah, today is my reading wrap up for the month of October. This is the first Friday of November that you're seeing this, and there's one book that I finished last night, so I'm going to include it here. So even though it wasn't October, I am going to put it in. And I finished 4 books, which compared to my other months, this was really excellent. I got 3 hard copies and then there was an audiobook. So I'll start with the audiobook first. So the audiobook that I read is Conversations with Friends by Rooney. I think I already started it in September, but I wasn't really into listening to audiobooks, and then I started my new job this week and I was able to fly through the rest of the audiobook in like 3 days. It was crazy. So yeah, I listened to, I don't really think it counts as reading, but I listened to Conversations with Friends by Rooney, and I ended up liking it quite a bit. I also quite like Normal People. It's like an unconventional romance story. That's how I would like try to categorize it. It's very sort of like, it feels very modern, sort of like what people go through in their 20s kind of idea, but a little bit more upscale. It's not this like, oh, sigh, and then I fell in love kind of thing. It is a story that is very romance heavy, but it's far more focusing on like the struggles of being in love and etc. Everything that goes down with it. I believe Conversations with Friends was released before Normal People. I think that was her first novel actually. And I have to say I like this even a little bit more than Normal People, because Normal People got dark. In the second half of that book, it got super dark, and this one never did, which I very much appreciated. In Conversation with Friends, we mainly follow Frances, who is from like a working class background, who studies in Dublin, and she has a friend from school called Bobby. They were in a relationship together, and Bobby, who's also a girl like Frances, is sort of like this rebel, like anarchist kind of thing, and Frances sort of gets sucked into this world, and together they perform poetry, and someone notices them and invites them to their home. And she's an older than they are lady. I believe Melissa is in her 30s and she's married to Nick. And then this whole thing starts to unravel with this couple that they're now hanging out with all the time. So it's very much focusing around Frances, but then how she relates to Bobby, how she relates to Melissa, how she relates to Nick, how she relates to her mother, how she relates to her dad. So there's a lot of elements that are in the story. I do have to say though, you're inside of Frances's head, and very often I was like, girl, just why are you making things so complicated? You're not, like, she has a certain diagnosis at a certain point in the story, because she's getting some stomach cramps, and then she decides to not tell because she doesn't want other people to see her as ill. So her justifications for some of her actions, they wouldn't be mine, which I find makes her a little bit more difficult to relate to, for sure. And just the way she sort of lives her life, a lot of it is like, oh, I'm not going to say anything because, or I'm, whatever. She always has these justifications, so I feel that she's very negative about herself. Yeah, so it was interesting to read. Again, like I felt about Normal People, like this is not the kind of book where you're like, ooh, wow, I'm super wowed by how this goes. I found some of the descriptions to be a little too detailed about like phones feeling very hot against your cold ear. It's like, it doesn't really matter for the story sometimes. So even though it's quite a short story to begin with, I felt it could have even been told in fewer words. But it was very enjoyable. I like this like exploration of this young student girl who then sort of tries to figure out who she is and how she relates to other people. I thought that was fun. So yeah, Sally Rooney's Conversation with Friends was one that was quite successful for me, and I ended up liking it quite a bit. Now, I promised you, I would update you as well on Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, because I was still in the midst of this as I was wrapping up my September reads, because I started this in September, did a reading vlog about it, and I just found that this was such a slow burn, and that's what I hear a lot of people say. So now that I've finished it, and now especially because a couple of weeks have passed since I finished it, this is not my favorite Leigh Bardugo book by any means. In terms of this being her adult novel, I found this felt very YA. In terms of like the mystery and everything else that's going on, I felt it was very lackluster. The ending was very predictable. It was trying to wrap things up too nicely in the end, which is why it very much made me feel like YA. That's one of my critiques of YA, is how it always wraps up nicely with a bow around it, and then we just get a little nudge as to know what the next story might be about. And with this, I felt it did that too. So for me, it didn't warrant the length. Nothing else is really going on. You start the story after everything has happened almost. Like we sort of around like the 75% mark, you kind of pick up the story from there. And that made me, like, it sets you up and it creates expectations that the book, I feel, doesn't make good on. So for me, this is not a series I'm going to be continuing. I thought Alex, the main character in this story, was incredibly boring to read from her perspective. So yeah, this is not one I will be continuing at all. In case you don't know what this is about, it's about a girl called Alex and she can see dead people. Pretty much, she can see ghosts. And she is recruited to sort of police these houses at, what's the name of the university again? I forgot. Yale's university class. And she needs to sort of make sure that when they do magic, things don't go haywire. And there's this long like history with all of these houses doing magic, etc., etc. So it sounds like a really cool, dark premise for sure. And everybody's been saying how this is dark academia and like this new subgenre, and it's not dark, it's boring. The main character is a drag. This wasn't great for me, sorry. And then we have this one, because I was like, after that, I just need something uplifting, something I know I'm gonna love. I'm still rereading some childhood favorites. This is Klopgeesten by Marjo Roeven. This was my favorite series growing up as a kid. And I remember why I like this so much. This book, I think, was my favorite. It's the 4th book in the series. In case you're not Dutch, if you've never heard of this is very 90s. It's terribly out of print. I managed to find these secondhand. And it's about 3 girls. One of the girls lives with her family in this old, dilapidated hotel that her mother runs, and they help out over summer break. And you have all these different guests that show up. And in this one, there is this group of people who come there, and all of a sudden there's all this mysterious knocking and, ooh, are they ghosts and whatever. So it kind of plays off of that, and I really enjoyed this. There's a little bit of mystery, there's a bit of action. These are just really very enjoyable, almost like adventure books for girls, which is probably why I ended up liking it so much, because I was never really into like what girls were supposed to like, but this is a little bit more like active, and girls can also be right, and that sort of thing is in here for sure. And we're sticking to Dutch for a minute, because the last book I finished is Manon Uphoff's Vallen is als Vliegen. I have set myself, a goal, that is, I now own quite a few Dutch books, and I'm not someone who usually reads a lot of Dutch literature. I mainly read English, so I was like, after liking a couple of things that I read in the previous years, like, I just need to make sure I have a couple of things and that I can read one. So my aim for 2021 is to try and read a Dutch book per month. And I thought I could already sort of dip my toe in 2020. So I read this. It's nice and short, but this is a very, very dark, gruesome, harrowing tale that is told in a very magical realism kind of way, you could say. In case you don't know what this book is about, it's about sexual abuse that the author of this book actually suffered as a child. And she kind of tells the story of her family, and how everything sort of comes to light, and people, like her and her sisters who this all happened to, they didn't even talk about these things happening in their family because dad was the abuser. So it's very dark because of that, but it sort of circles around it, so it never really mentions like the actual, well, it does mention the act, but it sort of goes around it. It never really sort of like just blatantly, very directly talks about it. She sort of uses metaphors and references to popular culture to talk about the things that she came across. And the story sort of starts when one of her older sisters falls down the stairs and passes away, and that kind of unites the sisters to come together, and they start talking about everything that happened, and that's how they kind of unravel. And that's also how the story is told. It's like unraveled, like unwrapped. Like all of a sudden more and more and more you find out, and the more you find out, the more gruesome it becomes. So this is not the kind of book that is easy to read for its content, but it's easy to read because it's quite short, and the way it's told, it's very lyrical, it's very beautifully written. I was able to read this in a single sitting, even though the topic that this book is actually trying to tackle is so gruesome and dark. So this never really, it makes you feel uncomfortable. I mean, it just does, but it is told in such a great way that you just, I don't know, it just makes you want to keep on reading. And that's one of the reasons why I really, really adored this book. It's got some beautiful language in it. In fact, I didn't know that Dutch writing could be like this. So that's it for the books that I finished. I am in the midst of reading something else, and that is Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. I wanted to finish reading this before the Netflix movie would be out, but I only managed to read like 50 pages over the weekend. Again, I'm not really, like, I'm still not fully over my slump where I go like through like 1 or 2 books a week. If I do that, by the end of this year, I can still make my Goodreads goal. This did, like, those first 50 pages were very enjoyable, so I will be continuing this, and hopefully I can finish this before the end of the month, because I definitely did buy some other books to read, so I kind of have a book haul coming for you, but I just thought I could update you on what I'm currently reading, which is Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, and I'm reading it so I can watch a Netflix movie sometime soon. So that is that book. And that concludes everything that I have been reading in the month of October. As you can tell, I'm still in the midst of another book, but I just thought I could update you on it. I only just started it, so I can't say anything about it. But yeah, I hope you would like to stay tuned for more videos. As I mentioned, they're gonna be a little bit more haphazard. I can't guarantee a Friday upload, but sometime over the weekend, I've been mostly uploading on Saturday nights now, as I'm making my other video, because that's when I have the time. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me for today. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I will be back with a new video next week, and that will be a book haul. So hope to see you then. Bye-bye.